Oh, hello. How are
Hello.
you, ladies?
Hi. I'm doing really good, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. I want to welcome you and everyone here to the second annual Conch International Film Festival. My name is Magaly Colimon-Christopher. I am the founder and fest director of this amazing, stupendous celebration of emerging, vibrant Caribbean and Caribbean diaspora films. So, as we embark into this second year of Conch International Film Festival, which is presented on our virtual film fest site, filmocracy.com, who happens to be our industry sponsor. I am inspired by all the voices, all the many voices of the filmmakers we're showcasing this year. Their passion, their talent, their, how would you say, unique perspectives and creativity are why I am producing this event. You got to have a why, right? And so
Yeah.
the why is a huge question in life.
Mm.
And so this year's theme is social change. And today I have the pleasure of chatting with these amazing Concho International Film Festival official selection filmmakers, writer, director of Carpe Diem, Tajha Winkle,
Hi.
and director Alicia Diaz of Entre. Oh, I don't speak Spanish, so help me, Alicia, please.
And
Entre Puerto Rico y Richmond. Is that how you say it?
yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Women. I'm sorry. Women in the resistance shall not be moved. I'm going to start that all over again because I can. Hello, Entre Puerto Rico y Richmond. Women in resistance shall not be moved. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Thank
so
you.
this year our theme is social change, and I want to talk with you, ladies, about how you feel your films are tools for social change. I mean, what kind of change do you hope to inspire? If you want to start, just jump in.
Okay,
I
sure.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead, Tasha.
okay. So for Carpe Diem was more of a film to inspire a bit of introspection because the film had the unique situation of being conceived before the pandemic and then coming to fruition during the pandemic. So it kind of merged these two perspectives of how do you really cope when it feels like the world is falling apart and
Mhm.
you have one half that can think, okay, I'm going to try everything in my power to, gain control of the situation. I'm going to study hard. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do this and that and try to solve all the problems in the world. But then you have another perspective that I believe is also equally as valuable, where you say time is short and life is
Hmm.
short. So I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm going to try to just make life as pleasurable as I can right now because things are out of my control. And with that film, I wanted to shed light on both perspectives and show that they both have their place and they're equally as valuable. And sometimes we just have to come to that understanding with each other that not everyone copes in the same way you do, and but both perspectives are deserving of empathy.
Thank you, Tasha. That's a really important point. Making room for each other's perspectives.
Mm.
Because I did find that people were highly judgmental and um, fractured
Mm.
because of different viewpoints and encouraging us to come together even though we have different viewpoints, but come
Mm.
together. That's an amazing message. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I love that space for joy
Mm-hmm.
that you talk about, right? And how to balance struggle and joy together.
Yeah.
I think is such an important part of the conversation.
Thank you.
And I will, I'm sure a number of people who will watch Carpe Diem will be thinking, I need to, rethink my approach. Maybe I need to have more joy, even in times of struggle. Maybe I need
Mm-hmm.
to be inspired to. What are the twos that you think that your film shared with the world? Like, try this.
Well, I wouldn't say it particularly shares any specific ways to go about it, But for the characters themselves, one of them kind of comes home from a long night of partying. And if you pay really close attention to the background, one of them has photos of their friends and, the little adventures they go on, has a little bit of alcohol underneath his bed, because he's just about relaxing and enjoying his life. And he goes about it by just being social and having a social group, and that's something he really values. And he tries to tell his other roommate that, hey, your social group is really important. And you can tell that because in the film, you will see, if you're paying attention to the background as well, there is a phone that has many missed calls, and you can assume that his friends are worried sick about him because the other character, he is mostly focused on just grinding and trying to make the most of his life and is just trying to really gain control. So for him, it's about coming up with tangible solutions to problems and trying to be I guess you could say, responsible citizen, meaning, he keeps everything orderly. He tries to arrange things. You can see instead of pictures of his friends, he has a vision board up on his wall with all of his goals. So I think if you're really looking for tools, you'll see those two. But at the same time, because of the conversation they have with each other, you realize that because neither of them has a balance, if you put both together, you end up having a balance. Yeah.
So the message is find balance. I love
Yes.
that. I love that. We all need that. I need that a lot. And Alicia, how do you feel Entre, Puerto Rico y Richmond, Women in Resistance Shall Not Be Moved, explores how to, act as a tool of social change? What kind of change did you hope to inspire?
I think that we were really driven by telling untold stories, and that part of thinking about social change and social justice is to bring light to histories that are, I think, by design kept under, right? And that are not shared, and those are stories that that show the lineage, right, of resistance and lineage of struggle and lineage of victories, right, in that struggle that are then sort of mashed down and denied in our learning about the world and about our potential, and especially as those that are fighting systemic injustice, right? And so Entre Puerto Rico, Richmond is a lot about bringing stories to the table, and in this case, it's dealing specifically with Puerto Rico as a as a U.S. colony, and so it's very much an anti-colonial film, and in thinking about the past, then thinking about what do we learn from the past that we can activate today in today's struggles. And we were highlighting the stories of women in particular. And so there's the story of Dominga de la Cruz Becerril, who is an Afro-Puerto Rican woman that was a nationalist in the 1930s, survived a massacre in Ponce in Puerto Rico against nationalists in 1937. And went on to really activate a movement for independence in Puerto Rico. And Luisa Capetillo is a really a powerful feminist, anarchist, labor organizer that really shifted the way of thinking about the possibilities of anti-colonial, struggle in Puerto Rico in the earlier, actually, for her, at the beginning of the 20th century. And so I was interested in how do we make bridges between stories that are not usually told together. And so I am Puerto Rican, but I live in Richmond, Virginia. And how do I place myself in this context? And so in doing research, I realized that the stories that really connected us was through tobacco, through the tobacco history and racial capitalism, right, in both places. And so Richmond, as the former capital of the Confederacy, in the South, tobacco was very, very important. And when the United States occupied Puerto Rico in 1898, the American Tobacco Company came in as one of the corporations that came in with that occupation in that colonial process. And so
makes you wonder, though. That makes you wonder whether it's government or corporation decides our journey.
And how together they are, right? Like it's
interwoven indelibly.
Exactly. And that has a history, right? Like that was so interesting to see that it's like, oh, these two things are happening together. They're part of the plan, they're part of the way it works. And so I saw, we started seeing with this amazing team of people that I was so lucky to work with, that was a really, really powerful place of meeting, of telling these stories. So then we looked into the American Tobacco Company here in Richmond and how it was Black women that worked in segregated facilities doing the hardest and dirtiest work in the tobacco industry. And Dominga de la Cruz and Luisa Capetillo in Puerto Rico were what were called tobacco factory readers. And that meant that they weren't working the tobacco, the craft, but they had jobs of reading to the workers while the workers were doing, this is still the artisanal kind of cigar making and all that stuff. And the people that read to the tobacco workers were really, it was very progressive. So they were reading newspapers, international newspapers, they were reading literature. They were like really part of the organizing that was taking place at the time, at the beginning of the 20th century, of labor organizing. And so we delved into this whole history of tobacco workers as labor organizers and activists, and then started making connections between the role of Dominga de la Cruz and Luisa Capetillo in that role, which for women is really interesting, right? Because there were a lot of men that were factory readers, but here we had two really powerful women. And then women in Richmond, Black women in Richmond, who were organizing strikes to demand better job conditions. So they were in the 1940s, they were able to get 8-hour days of work and all these other benefits that weren't there before. So this really rich area of struggle in two places that we don't usually think about together, Puerto Rico and Virginia, but really come together when we think about them in relationship to colonialism and to racism. And this systemic way, which I really understand as empire, right? As U.S. empire, as Puerto Rico is today a colony, and today really fighting in great struggle against the way that U.S. colonialism manifests today. And as I speak to you, there are protests going on in Puerto Rico against the privatization of public services that are part of the way that the colonial rule works today. So anyway, all of that, and then how to do that through the arts, and how to do it through dance, and how to do it through film, and to tell those stories in ways that were not literal, but poetic, right? And really trying to think about past, present, and future with this sort of historical imagination of bringing people that wouldn't have been sitting together at the same table or in the same factory, but through the arts, we can engage in that kind of conversation that brings times all together for us to be able to talk across generations.
And I really loved, I really loved how your piece explored spirituality and its role in movements. And that's a very integral truth for the Caribbean nations overall,
Mm-hmm.
And the props, the objects that were used as part of the dance were not simply props. They were spiritual elements that were used to evoke spiritual beings. And I was interpreting that from this perspective as a Haitian American person who knows a lot about our ancestors. And, you know, whether you speak about the Tainos, or whether you speak about the Caribs, or if you talk about the Africans, how he brought this truth to our community and how it still lives in the community. So I would love both of you ladies to share with me how you feel that art can be spiritual, right? How it can evoke the same way that we evoke change with dance in religious settings. How is film for you a tool to awaken? Because social change is about awakening the soul. It's not necessarily the brain. The brain can accept data and say yes, yes, but the soul says there's something else, right? So, Tajha, if you'd like to share.
Sure. So for me, I can speak from animation. Animation tends to disarm people because it's cartoons and because you're not seeing real life, something so realistic looking. You tend to approach it with a softer heart. And I think that's primarily because most people associate animation with children. But because you come in with that expectation, you are caught off guard to how very meaningful and how very intricately woven these stories can be. And you're also able to play around a lot with colors and characters and designs in a way that you might not get to by using real people in real life. So for me, with art, you are able to disarm people so that they can be ready to accept or really reflect on a certain message that you're trying to put in the film. Because in Carpe Diem, there are no real physical human characters, but their stories are human, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I loved how in Carpe Diem they were mangoes with clothes on, but still they had these amazing resonating experiences, and I forgot they were mangoes. I felt the pain. I felt the COVID pain. I felt the isolationism, and that is indeed true. Alicia, what are your thoughts?
I'm really loving that idea of disarming people and sort of getting through the armor, you know, that we carry around, and animation as being this entry point into a different level of understanding and feeling that it elicits. I'm really loving that right now. For the work that we did, ritual was at the center of the work, and it was both ritual in terms of how we were going about the work, ourselves, the creative process as ritual, and ritual, you know, in the film, in the installation that was created. Luis Vasquez Larroche, who is from Trinidad but was living here at the time, worked this beautiful installation of objects that were all meant, you know, inspired and important for the characters that we were working with, but they were also important for us as people in our rituals. And so that's what came forward. So there's this merging of ritual between the present and the past. And we were entering, you know, say a sacred space, right? A place because we were able to, I didn't say it before, but what was so very special about this project is that we were able to film in the last standing warehouse of the American Tobacco Factory in Richmond. Right before it was being torn down. So it was turned into a housing complex for sort of like a mixed income housing. And there was a row of warehouses that were the very last ones. Another area had already been turned into apartments. And as we were given permission to film in one of them for one day, and all the other ones were being destroyed as we were working. So as we were filming, there are all these, construction things happening, and the space had been closed for a long time. So going inside of it was sensorially was really intense. So there was this, because the smell was very strong, the taste, the tobacco. In this case, that warehouse had become about cigarette making, right? Because that's what happens with that entrance of the capitalist form of production. It goes away from the artisanal into the capitalist production of cigarettes.
Right.
And when we are working with, tobacco is sacred. Tobacco, and talking about ancestors, right?
Ritual. It's part of the ritual for Native Americans.
So the whole project is dealing with this, tobacco as we were encountering in this history as something toxic and a symbol of oppression. But how do we reclaim it as ancestral and healing? And so there was this ongoing conversation about that. That was part of this sense of ritual, and how do we honor the lives of those that worked in that space, and the lives of those that suffered there, but also organized there and thrived, in different ways, and how do we elevate that? So the whole space, we had candles, we had altars that were intentionally created for different things, and we each kind of came in, Luis created an altar for Oshun, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that was very specific. And Christine, who's one of the dance artists and much more for the project, created one for youth, and specifically for Black youth, right? And this, we had altars for our ancestors. So many of the photographs that appear are both of activists in it, pertaining to these histories, but also of our family members, right? So
I'm feeling moved just thinking of all the spirits in the room.
All the
spirits.
Exactly.
It really resonates on camera. There's something magical about watching the film. Yeah. There's something intangible and gripping about Entre, Puerto Rico y Richmond.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's something else. I'd love to read these comments that we have here. Rivka Rivera says, that's beautiful lineage of resistance. Damani Brissette says, bridging stories not customarily told together. Very powerful. And he also says, a great film that disarms via animation is Waltz with Bashir. Ooh. Do you want to share what that means, Damani? Would you like to come on camera and share what that means? Just type yes, because that's a mystery to me right now. But it's okay. You can just type it. That is like
sure, he says.
He says okay, sure. Great. So Alessandra will bring you into a box and you will share with us what that means. Waltz with Bashir.
Hi.
Hi, Damani. Welcome to our stage, Damani Brissette.
Hi,
Thanks for joining us at this festival.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an amazing conversation. The first festival I've seen with such a vibrance of Caribbean diaspora, and I think it's something that I needed to know existed now more than ever.
Oh yeah.
Born and raised in Flatbush, Brooklyn, now named Little Caribbean. I'm Jamaican lineage, so it's very, very impactful.
Thank you. So what does Waltz with Bashir mean?
Well, it's a film. It's a film. It's a film.
I gotta go see it. I'm gonna see it.
Oh yeah.
Must do. Waltz with Bashir. I'm gonna see that.
Yeah, it's an amazing animated film that was done in Microsoft Paint, and
wow.
From Israel. It's a kind of like a memory epic where a former Israeli defense soldier has a sense of amnesia from his time serving, and he's going on and it's a documentary. He just happened to animate the interviews in a way that feels like an animated narrative.
Thank you, Damani. We're gonna have to thank you because there's a lot of noise in the background,
Oh,
and
sorry.
but
Yeah.
I would love to let's talk with Damani in the communal areas. But
Yeah.
I'm writing down this Waltz with Bashir. I need to see this film. Is it available anywhere, like on Netflix or something, or is it simply I have to find a film festival? Because that tends to be the case for powerful films that invoke change and provoke thought. It's only available. Oh, it's available on Amazon. Great. So
Okay.
I'm gonna go check that out. Good seeing you, Damani.
Yes, thank you.
Nice.
That was amazing. I can't wait to see that. That's why I love film festivals. You know, we opened this conversation with why, right?
Yes.
And I really appreciate Alicia and Tajha for sharing their whys. And I'm looking forward to all the other conversations with all the other filmmakers today sharing their whys, because I don't know about you ladies, but I always feel that there has to be something more than just the end result. There's a purpose in what we do, right? It's not just a film. It's a film that, and I'm really grateful to both of you for being driven. Because this is your first film, right, Alicia?
Yes.
Is this your first film, Tajha, or are you a seasoned animator?
Well, I wouldn't call myself very seasoned, but this is my first solo film, I would say, that has gotten this much recognition. So I hope there's a lot more to come.
I know there'll be a lot more to come, and there is a lot more to come at this festival. We are going to be. Alexandria is going to come on the screen and she's going to tell us what's next for our festival after this amazing conversation. And if you don't remember the films that these women directed, I am going to type it in the chat right now, because you have to go into the on-demand screening room and see them. And because they are amazing.
Yes. Our next filmmaker chat it begins here at 1 o'clock, and it will be led by Chris Truth of Thermal Sound Waves.
Nice.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us, and come back for the next one. Thank you, Alicia.
Yes, hope to see you soon.
Tajha.
Thank you so much. This was so
Thank you,
wonderful.
everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.